Hey there, and welcome. Today, we are diving headfirst into something you see all the time, but maybe don't think about. The secret sex life of flowers. Seriously. It's this incredibly complex story of attraction, of dangerous journeys, and some really clever survival strategies. You know, the source material for this explainer asks a really great question. Aren't we lucky that plants reproduce this way? I mean, think about it. All the different kinds of flowers, the amazing smells, the vibrant colors that we love, they're not just some happy accident. They exist for a very specific reason, to help plants reproduce. But here's the twist. What if all that beauty, all those incredible smells, what if they have nothing to do with us? What if they're actually super sophisticated tools that plants evolved for one main goal, to make more plants? All right, let's get into it and see how this all really works. So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with what a flower really is, biologically speaking. Then we'll look at the male and female parts, the pollen and the ovule. We'll see how they meet, witness this totally unique thing called double fertilization, and finally, look at the end products, the seeds and fruits that are, well, pretty critical for all of us. Right. So for most of us, a flower is just a pretty thing to look at. But for a scientist, it's a marvel. It's this incredibly specialized piece of machinery, basically. It is the one place on the plant that is completely dedicated to sexual reproduction. Okay, so for reproduction to happen, you've got to bring the male and female gametes together. Simple enough? The male part of the flower is the stamen, and right at the top of it, you have the anther. You can think of the anther as a factory, and its one job is to produce the amazing, all-important pollen grain. And the process for making them, which is called microsporogenesis, is just super efficient. So inside that anther, you have a single parent cell. It's called a pollen mother cell. It goes through this special kind of division called meiosis, and the result is a little bundle of 4 cells called a tetrad. Each and every one of those 4 cells can then grow up to become a mature pollen grain. Now, the reason pollen is so tough is because of its outer shell. It's made of a substance called sporopollenin, and this stuff is, wow, it's basically nature's version of Kevlar. It's one of the toughest organic materials we know of. High heat, strong acids, nothing touches it. There isn't even an enzyme known that can break it down. That's why we can find fossilized pollen from thousands of years ago. Here's a cool detail. When the pollen actually leaves the anther, it's not always totally ready. For about 60% of flowering plants, it's released in a 2-celled state. It has 1 vegetative cell and 1 generative cell. That generative cell will actually divide 1 more time to make the 2 male gametes later, during its journey toward the egg. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the female side of the equation. The main female part is the pistil, and deep inside it, tucked away safely inside the ovary, is the ovule. This is the inner sanctum where the female gamete, the egg cell, is made and kept safe. Now, this is where the female process really differs from the male one. A single mother cell goes through that same meiosis to make 4 new cells. But instead of all 4 becoming viable, 3 of them just wither away. Only 1 survives. This one functional cell then has its nucleus divide 3 times, creating the final structure we call the embryo sac. And this whole process leads to some really weird, cool biological math. After all those divisions, you end up with a structure that has 8 nuclei, but they're arranged into only 7 cells. It's this incredibly efficient little package, and it's a signature feature of pretty much all flowering plants. All right, so we've got our male gametes packaged up neatly in pollen, and we have our female gamete waiting patiently in the ovule. The next big problem is, how do you get them together? That transfer from the anther to the stigma is what we call pollination. And plants basically have 2 major strategies for this. The first is abiotic, which means using non-living things like wind or water. It's really a game of chance, but the vast majority of plants play a different game, a game of attraction. They use biotic agents, living careers like bees, birds, bats, you name it, to do the delivery for them. And if you're a plant that relies on the wind, you don't really need to be pretty. There's no point. So wind-pollinated flowers aren't colorful, they don't have scents, their pollen is super light and not sticky so it can travel far, and the stigma is often huge and feathery, like a giant net to catch any pollen that happens to fly by. It's so random, they often only have one ovule. Why waste energy on lots of eggs if the chances of even one getting fertilized are so low?
But just landing on the stigma isn't enough. The pistil is like a gatekeeper. It has to check the pollen's ID. Is it from the right species? Is it compatible? This whole recognition process is described as a continuous chemical dialogue. It's a screening process, and only if the pollen gets the green light is it allowed to continue its journey.
So if the pollen passes the test and its tube grows all the way to the ovule, we get to the main event. This is the climax. It's a truly amazing process that is completely unique to flowering plants. It's called double fertilization. So what happens is there are two separate fertilization events at the same time. The first male gamete fuses with the egg cell. That creates the zygote, which will become the baby plant, the embryo. Then the second male gamete fuses with that big central cell that has two nuclei. This is called triple fusion, and it creates something called the endosperm, which is basically the packed lunch that will feed the embryo as it grows. So, after that incredible double fertilization is complete, the flower's job is pretty much over. The ovule starts developing into a seed, and the ovary around it swells up to become a fruit. These are the final products, and they are absolutely essential, not just for the plant, but for us too. And here's a fun little piece of trivia for you. Fruits like mangoes or tomatoes develop only from the flower's ovary. We call those true fruits. But then you have things like apples or strawberries, where other parts of the flower, like the base it sits on, also become part of the fleshy fruit. Botanically speaking, those are known as false fruits. And this really gets to the heart of why all this matters to us. Seeds. They are the foundation of all agriculture. That hard seed coat protects the embryo inside, and the food reserves keep it alive. And maybe most importantly, their ability to just go dormant, to wait, is what lets us store them for food and to plant crops year after year. And how long can they wait? Well, it's just mind-blowing. They found a 2,000-year-old date palm seed in an archaeological dig, and it grew. Even crazier, seeds from an Arctic lupine, which were frozen in the tundra for an estimated 10,000 years, were germinated successfully. Just incredible. Which leaves us with this final, really awe-inspiring thought. Think about a giant ficus tree. It can produce billions of seeds in its lifetime. And it makes you wonder, how can a structure that tiny hold all the information and potential to create something so massive, which in turn creates billions more seeds? It's just a powerful reminder of this beautiful, relentless, and ingenious process that keeps the plant world turning. Thanks so much for diving in with us today.